Welcome back to Talk of the Town on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM, on WHTC.com, and on the WHTC app for your smartphone. Once again, here's your host, Gary Stevens.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town for this Friday, July 24th. Fourth Friday of the month, which means at this time we catch up with some law enforcement matters with the top elected law enforcement officer in the county. He is Sheriff Eric DeBoer. Eric, good morning. Welcome back, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
We are well. If you have a question for the sheriff, we'll be happy to answer it at 616-395-1450. Let me begin first with something that we have been notified about earlier this week. Though we hope you are never faced with a situation, would you know what to do in the case of an active shooter? Doing the right things can increase your odds of getting through alive, as the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office has another civilian response to active shooter events class set up for July 28th. Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll pass on some information as we go along.
Yeah, no, it's one of those classes that you wish you didn't have to put on, right? Obviously, that's the worst case scenario, and we don't want to, foment fear. But doing the right thing at the right time is the way to get through it, and thinking about it when you're not under stress and learning what you should do so that when you are under stress is the reason we as police officers train, so there's no reason why civilians shouldn't do the same thing. So we've got a bunch of really great instructors that'll walk you through kind of some of that stuff. And so we put that on a couple times a year as best we can, and it's really well received and really well done. So,
what things should people keep in mind if they don't go to the class that they should be aware of so that they are not overly aware of the matter?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's, trying to find a place where you can shelter, where you can hide, where you can secure the door, and keep out of the way. Just running blindly is not always the best way of doing things. So trying to find a place to hunker in, lock things behind you, and be quiet. But then if that's not going to work, there's a series of steps that you should go through, and ultimately at the very end, if you must, then fight. But
the class is set for next Tuesday, the 28th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Fillmore Street Complex Administration Building. And as I've just pulled up the register page, normally it gets filled very quickly. We have 32 spots as we speak available.
Well, I would imagine that as soon as you mentioned it, we'll probably start filling up again. But again, this is one of those things that we generally fill pretty quickly, and then we'll generally get a lot of workplaces will request, hey, when's that next one coming up? We'd like to talk about that. So I would be surprised if it's not filled by week's end. But.
Speaking about workplace, we were very fortunate several years ago to have a member of the Holland Department of Public Safety come in to instruct us about a similar, have a similar class in that particular situation. Is this available for businesses to ask the sheriff's office to have a deputy come in and discuss the matter? Yeah,
ultimately we can, depending on timing and availability, if that's something that a business is concerned about, we can definitely come in and look through it and walk through it and have some conversations about that. Some of the larger companies will come in and try and ask for a craze class on site, so it's actually site specific. So that's something we can look at depending on what we have going on. I know we've done it for the courts, especially, with the court employees as well.
One other thing, and then we'll move to other topics as well. Although you do not instruct personally,
no,
you are aware, though, of what is being instructed. To a certain extent, are there changes or are there trends that need to be addressed? Like, hey, I took a class 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe you need to take another one because maybe things have changed a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question because ultimately I've never been an instructor in it, so to know what the trends were. But from my understanding, most of it has stayed. There might be some nuances, but most of it stayed pretty similar. I know when I started on patrol, we had for the department, active shooter training, and I know some of our rescue type tactics have changed slightly just based on the Uvalde incident. So obviously we're always trying to evolve our tactics, but for the most part, what the civilians probably should be doing is been pretty standard.
If you have a question for Ottawa County Sheriff Eric DeBoer, 616-395-1450. 50. Big doings up in Grand Haven. The annual Grand Haven Coast Guard USA Festival, 10-day run beginning today, the 24th, and running through August the 2nd, and the presence of the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department. Not only the Marine unit, but also road deputies will definitely be there.
Yeah, Grand Haven Department of Public Safety does a great job keeping the city safe and taking the influx of people, because obviously it is a big draw, just like Tulip Time is for Holland. But just like in Tulip Time, we support them as much as we can. So generally there's a meeting on some of the bigger events, and they have their asks. So we'll be down there for the Coast Guard Festival Parade, and then those of us that aren't working it, hopefully will be walking with us in the parade. We'll have an entry there to celebrate the Coast Guard as well.
Now, that is the parade itself on the streets of Grand Haven. People can have tours of the Coast Guard ships that are going to be there. Maybe not so much with the sheriff's ships right now, isn't it?
Well, no, we always have a great partnership with the Coast Guard, so we're parked in the same Coast Guard basin as they are, so that we have the security for our boats. But yeah, we'll be out patrolling during that time, so that you guys can enjoy your time admiring and being thankful for the Coast Guard's presence here in Grand Haven.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I can speak a little bit with authority with you, Eric, because you have been involved with the Marine unit in the past. These boats that the Sheriff's Office uses, not only in Grand Haven, but also in Lake Mac, and also on the waters of Lake Michigan and other areas as well. It really is, shall we say, up to date with many of the life-saving as well as law enforcement tools that the deputies need to be able to patrol safely.
Yeah, we do our best to make sure that they're outfitted with all the things that we can need, or we might need at any particular point in time. I know this year, I think we talked about it a couple months ago, we were putting full-time road patrol deputies on the boats with the Marine Patrol deputies, and I know a couple of those, of the ones that we've chosen, are dive team members as well. So instead of having the dive team members in their cars on patrol having to come out there, they've had their stuff with them, so that we'll be a little bit more responsive that way. But yeah, there's been quite the evolution. We used to have different types of boats, and we've kind of moved to this rigid hull inflatable because it's easier to make the traffic stops. It handles the waves a little bit better, and so it's a little bit harder for dive operations if you ever try to climb into a rubber boat. But yeah, we've got some different things for different uses. So, and we're going to continue to upgrade those as we keep going.
Now, let me move one more thing. Speaking about water, and I don't want to make this sound like I'm throwing you a curveball, Eric, but the perception I'm getting right now is that safety on the waters has been pretty good so far.
Now you did it. Now you said your dad was a cop. Would you just say why don't you just go say the Q word? Yeah, no, we've. Obviously we had the one really bad incident in Port Sheldon. And that one that kind of set the tone for where we needed to be as far as responsiveness, and I think we talked about that before. We were watching the body camera of the boat pilot and did some incredible things with the boat, and unfortunately wasn't able to save the young man's life. But it wasn't for lack of trying. He ended up beaching the boat trying to get the young man in. But since then, as far as boat incidents and swimming incidents, we've been fortunate so far, but we're not through the season yet. So continue, please, being safe. Yeah.
I'm not trying to jinx you guys.
Yeah, no, okay.
But I'm trying to point out that, well, I don't want to say the messages that are getting through, but I would think people are much more aware of water safety.
Yeah, and we've been lucky. It's been a beautiful season. I don't know how much time you spent out on the big lake, but we've had a lot of calm days, and we've had a lot of warm water. There was an upwelling just recently, so the lake's pretty cold right now, but there hasn't been a lot of big waves days. And just know that we're always looking at new things, and you'll probably hear some things later on in the next couple months about some technologies we're investigating for possibly even making things safer, but we're not far enough along in the process there to really touch on those yet.
All right, 616-395-1450 if you have a question for Ottawa County Sheriff Eric DeBoer. Earlier, about a month or so, it was about five weeks ago, unfortunately, I was involved in a fender bender accident and had to get my nice 2-month, 3-month-old Ford Explorer into the shop to get repaired. And the repair people saying, "Oh, it's such a nice car." And you had to, but I had to drive a rental car.
Okay.
Which is fine.
Okay.
It's fine, except for one little problem. I looked at the license plate.
And?
It had a May 26 tab on it.
That's unfortunate.
And I was a little concerned because even though I am friends with the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office as well as the Holland Department of Public Safety, I didn't want to be pulled over.
Yeah, no. Nobody
And
wants
so
that.
I went to the rental office and said, hey, we got a problem here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry. The deputies and the officers know if it's a rental car, they'll let you through. Fortunately, I wasn't pulled over, but
well, and the difference is maybe you can never tell if they're registered and they just put the sticker on right. Obviously there's improper display and then there's expired registration, and those are two different things. But one we might talk about and one we might not. So we'll. But
I'm just bringing it up because I'm always concerned about making sure. All my stuff's there, so if I'm doing something wrong, I know either I'm going too fast, which I'm trying not to because I'm hitting the cruise control, but follow all the laws and drive with peace of mind.
It makes it a lot easier when you don't have to worry, doesn't it?
Let's get to the phone, 616-395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Ottawa County Sheriff Eric DeBoer.
Good morning. I am curious about what the laws are on the bike paths as far as e-bikes and kids riding scooters and these kind of things. I've almost been hit several times, and I'm just wondering what the law is and if they're liable if they hit you and so forth.
Yeah. By the way, before you answer, Eric, you caller, you do have an e-bike or a scooter in that regard, so you're talking to someone who is doing this?
I'm talking about people that are doing it. I don't have one, but...
Okay, I for a minute I was thinking that you yourself may have been a situation, possible victim. Hopefully it wasn't. So it's a good question. Eric, go ahead now.
Yeah. So, and that's one of those evolving technology things. But ultimately, what's allowed on the bike path or non-motorized vehicle path or whatever it may be called is subject to each township's ordinances. And so some allow it, some don't. What's allowed on the road is generally the difference, in the state laws. So, I know there was a big way back in the day when I was still on patrol when Segways first came out. I know there was a big talk down in the area I patrolled of this is a non-motorized vehicle path, so though they weren't allowed, but now obviously everything keeps changing around, and so there are some of it depends on the speed, some of it depends on the classification of the e-bike, if it's a level 1 or a level 2. So there's no real easy answer, but I can tell you that some of it's dependent on where you live. So ultimately, the best place to start your search is on your township's webpage where they post their ordinances, and that's probably will be the easiest spot for you to at least find out where to start. And then we have township deputies that are assigned to each township, and they generally will know what each township allows and doesn't allow, and we'll help enforce that.
Okay. Because I used to see signs here and there that said no motorized vehicles, but I don't seem to see those anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll check with the township then.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you very much for the call, 616-395-1450. And as we've mentioned before, a year ago when we pressed Eric DeBoer about bike safety.
Yeah, you sprung it on me, and I was like, I don't know. And it's funny because you ask now, but my son just bought one with his birthday money so he can get back and forth to school for football practice, so I probably should get back up on it.
But the thing is, one thing I am well aware of is that bicyclists have to follow the rules of the road. It's not like pedestrians where the safest thing is for a pedestrian to walk into traffic, not into traffic, in the middle.
Against traffic.
Against traffic, whereas bikes and scooters should ride with traffic.
Yeah, and I think it's important because there's always this weird dynamic between, especially like the professional bikers, the guys that are putting on miles, the men and women that are putting on miles for the exercise, and they understand that they have to be in the roadway, and they get that and they have that right, and so you'll see that fight with people on the road getting frustrated, and I don't know why, just go around them, but at the same time, then when they come to the stop sign, they're supposed to stop and not just blow through, or they're supposed to indicate. So be sure give them give them all the room they need. If you see a bike, and if you're a bicyclist, you own that lane, that's fine. But then make sure you abide by all the other rules so that somebody doesn't get hurt. So,
Eric, the reason why I brought up my license plate story from the rental is the fact that more and more departments, not only locally but across the country, are using surveillance to try to stop or spot violations of certain laws and regulations. And one of those surveillance issues is cameras, automated license plate readers. These systems made by Flock Safety using artificial intelligence to capture vehicle details, license plates, and unique identifiers such as bumper stickers, operating across thousands of American communities as a public safety and mass surveillance tool.
Sounds ominous, doesn't it?
You may have to address this issue because there are some concerns about privacy, but also concerns about safety, and what, if used in the right way, they are a safe tool. If used in the wrong way, people have legitimate concerns.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's like any argument on the internet, right? There are certain people that are looking for honest information to make informed decisions, and I always invite that, right? Like, that's where you should be. And the problem is, with the internet being what it is, arguments and questions get co-opted by people that sound like they know what they're talking about. They don't have the right information, and then it just kind of goes from there, and we get all these conspiracy theories. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to talk to the people that actually know, and that's why that we'll talk about here today. We'll be putting out some statements here shortly about it as well. But yeah, Ottawa County has a contract with Flock, and then also we have a base of operation of like just a series of cameras from the county, and then we contract with all these townships and cities and villages as well. We got 27 contracts for deputies. Each one of those can choose if they want to add Flock cameras to part of their service, and so a couple different townships have added some as well. And we've had them since about 2024. Just so that everybody's aware, since 2024, it's added 85 arrests, about $600,000 in stolen property recovered, 49 stolen vehicles recovered, 7 illegal guns. We found we developed identity of suspect in multiple criminal sexual conduct cases, including one that was part of a National Center for Missing and Exploited Children investigation, an aggravated stalking case, a fatal hit and run, and a road rage shooting, and multiple domestic violence. But also, it's just as important to understand that it's bringing home people that are lost, that are confused, that are having mental health issues, so much so that we were finding people out of state, including a woman that had a mental health issue and brought her children, kind of taking her children without anybody's knowledge or her husband's knowledge or permission out of state, and they were found and returned safely. In a gentleman that was going from one place to another in Michigan, got confused and was found a couple states away. So, and also it confirmed a timeline of a suspect in a case and exonerated him. So we're using them for all these different things. So the questions that are coming up, and then I think that need to be addressed, are what's happening with this information and how is it being used? And ultimately, it's ours. Our contract says it's getting held for 30 days and it's deleted. I have no access to it after 30 days. If we want it for a case, we'll pull it in. We'll put it in evidence as well. But then it's gone. And our contract also says that Flock can't sell that information. All right? They can aggregate the information and use it to make their system better, but they can't even sell it in aggregate. And that's different than, say, Google, which you carry around in your pocket every day. And so those are some of the biggest concerns. We don't use it for traffic enforcement. We don't use it for speeding. The cameras are at the back of the cars. We're not taking pictures of faces. It's not AI in facial rec. It's AI, and that's a blue Buick Regal with this license plate. That's the AI that's used. And then the next question is, how do we use it at the sheriff's office? Well, we have to have a purpose for it. It has to have a case number or a reason, and that's audited. And if we have someone that's outside of what they should be doing, just like all the other databases we use, that's dealt with internally, just like if we were accessing Secretary of State information improperly. Because ultimately what happens is these conspiracy things start, and then anecdotally there's some police officer somewhere, because there's hundreds of thousands of us, that misuses it, and then that becomes the story. And it's just an anecdote. It's one bad apple. And the fact that it's being actually publicized means that it was caught and it was dealt with. But that becomes then the story. We're not using it to track you. If you're innocent, we're just going back and developing leads. And so those are the things that we're doing. It's not a video feed. I can't watch it live. It's just a database of of cars with the plate that went past a certain time at a certain place at a certain time. And so that's ultimately what we're doing with it.
Now, has there been some discussion about maybe having surveillance, especially in dangerous intersections, to enforce red lights and the like?
So we don't have the state just passed a law allowing the use of cameras to enforce speed in construction zones, and that's new this year. That's not something we generally do. We don't have the equipment for it. No, generally either Michigan Department of Transportation or Michigan State Police will put those up in MDOT areas where there's construction. We don't use those for red light cameras. That's not done in this state. We have that in other states. I mean, I think we've all gotten that random letter from Illinois when you were going through the city.
Or the texts.
Yeah, like you just slow down when you didn't stop at that light, but we don't do that here. And this is just purely to develop leads in public safety incidents where there's some sort of crime.
It's different than the contract with Axon.
Yeah.
That is the body cameras. So
right.
That's a different setup.
And ultimately Axon has license plate reader cameras as well. There's a difference in that information is stored, the license plates that are gathered by that are stored locally, whereas Flock, it's not. And so it was interesting when this all came about, this was years ago, the big perk to this was that the police don't have the information. They can only look at it if they need to. And it was the strength of the system that it was held by a private company. And in the decades since that kind of started, now all of a sudden it's flopped to say we don't trust corporations, we want the police to have it. And so a lot of you're seeing these agencies say, well, we're going to go away from our Flock contract. What they're not saying is, we're probably going to use something else because then we'll hold the data. If you can FOIA it, it's the same kind of thing. So
yeah.
The other thing I think I want to point out is our cameras are only facing public roadways where there's not, there's a legal basis of not having an expectation of privacy. Anybody could stand out there with their camera phone and do the same thing. Now, you might see one saying, hey, I see this in a parking lot somewhere. Flock does sell to corporations, and so a lot of loss prevention groups for big box stores will buy them to help deal with retail fraud. To say, okay, this man or woman ran out of the store with this box, they got in a brown car, but here, please, here's the license plate because they're using it as well that way. They don't get the back end information from NCIC to say if it's stolen or not, like we do. And that's what it does. It just checks it against either a hot list or the stolen lists in the national database to give us an alert that a stolen car is driving down this road.
Yeah. Concerns about privacy, of course, a lot of people about that. For those of us who are believers, we know that all of our moves are being watched by somebody who has got better than anything Flock could provide for us.
Well, and ultimately, I encourage the challenge from the public to say we need to be able to trust you. And so I don't have any problem with the question. I really don't. But we're starting to see some vandalism to some of our equipment, and all that's doing is costing the taxpayers money because we have to pay for that to get it fixed. So we can have the discussions, and I think those are good. I don't ever back away from being questioned on something because they might have some viewpoint I haven't thought of. But ultimately, the destruction of property isn't dialogue.
If you'd like more about what's going on at the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office, as well as information if you have a friend or a loved one incarcerated at the Ottawa County Jail, go to myottawa.org. Under departments, look for Sheriff, and you'll get all the information that you need. Sheriff Eric DeBoer, as always, thank you very much for spending some time with us and answering some of our questions. Wish you an all in black well, and if all goes well, we'll do this again in the month of August. Thank
Sounds good. See you then.
Thank you very much, Eric DeBoer, Ottawa County Sheriff. NBC News with Michael Kastner straight ahead, followed by WHTC News, and then more talk of the town, including Brian Spencer's What's New Around Howland at 10:20, and then at the bottom of the hour, Mark DeWitt, the Chief Advancement Officer with Evergreen Commons. Tiger baseball tonight, Tigers and the Royals from Comerica Park. Coverage begins at 6:15 p.m. on WHTC, Holland's Cool FM.